We think we know George Washington, the calm hero, the perfect general, the untouchable legend. But behind the marble statue was a man who joked about his own death, feared America's future, and wrestled with power, war, and slavery. These 7 quotes will change how you see him forever.
I have heard a circumstantial account of my death and dying speech.
Wait, what? George Washington is talking about his own death while very much alive? How could a future founding father calmly joke about his dying speech? Is he confused? Or was this dark humor born on the battlefield? This line comes from one of the most chaotic moments of his early life. In 1755, during the Battle of the Monongahela, British and colonial forces were ambushed by French and Native American troops near present-day Pittsburgh. The defeat was catastrophic. Many officers were killed, and rumors quickly spread that Washington was among the dead. Stories even circulated describing how he supposedly died and what he said with his last breath. When Washington later heard these rumors, he responded with this dry, almost amused line. At the time, he was 23, and the quote shows an unexpected side of his young, sharp-witted, and already aware of how legends and false stories are born in war.
My movements must be secret and rapid.
This sounds like a line from a spy thriller. Secret movements? Rapid action? Was Washington hiding something from his own people? Was he involved in political intrigue, the very thing he claimed to hate? In reality, this had nothing to do with intrigue. It was pure military strategy. You see, during the Revolutionary War, Washington led an undersupplied army against a stronger enemy. Surprise was often his only advantage. If the British learned his plans, soldiers could die. This quote shows Washington as a careful commander who understood that silence and speed could win battles. But the quote also hints at the dangerous political chessboard he was forced to navigate, even though he personally distrusted secrecy and manipulation.
The once happy and peaceful plains of America are either to be drenched with blood or inhabited by slaves.
This sounds terrifying. Is George Washington predicting rivers of blood and slavery across America? This is not the hopeful language we expect from a future president. Was he giving up on the American dream before it even began? Washington wrote this in May 1775, as tensions between the colonies and Britain were reaching the breaking point. He wasn't celebrating violence, he was warning against it. Washington believed that if the colonies did nothing, Britain would crush their freedom and reduce them to political slavery. But if they resisted, war was unavoidable. This quote shows Washington as deeply troubled, standing at a crossroads. He was mourning the loss of peace, not calling for bloodshed. To him, the future looked dark either way, but freedom was worth the risk.
There is not a man living who wishes more sincerely than I do to see a plan adopted for the abolition of slavery.
This sounds noble, almost heroic. George Washington openly calling for the end of slavery? But here's the uncomfortable truth. When he wrote this, he owned slaves, many of them. Washington inherited 10 enslaved people at age 11, and later controlled many more through his marriage to Martha Custis. By the time of his death, over 300 enslaved people lived at Mount Vernon, working as field laborers, skilled craftsmen, and household servants. So why does this quote matter? Because it shows a man in moral conflict. Over time, Washington grew uneasy with slavery. He spoke privately against it and became the only Southern founding father to free his enslaved people in his will. This quote reveals a deeply flawed man, struggling slowly and imperfectly toward change.
I heard the bullets whistle, and believe me, there is something charming in the sound.
What did he just say? Bullets are charming? This sounds disturbing, almost heartless. We expect fear, not excitement. Was Washington a cold-blooded war lover? But here's the context. Washington wrote this in 1754, after his very first military engagement, the skirmish at Jumonville Glen, where colonial forces clashed with French troops. He wrote the line in a letter to his younger brother, and it reads like youthful bravado. Washington was only 22, eager to prove himself, and proud that he had faced danger and survived. Like many young officers, he mixed fear with excitement and confidence. Now listen carefully, because just 1 year later, his tone completely changes.
I have been protected beyond all human probability or expectation. for I had 4 bullets through my coat and 2 horses shot under me, yet escaped unhurt, although death was leveling my companions on every side of me.
In 1755, during the disastrous Battle of the Monongahela, British and colonial forces under General Edward Braddock suffered a humiliating defeat. The battle turned into a slaughter. Officers fell all around Washington. Chaos ruled the field. The future president survived barely, and this is how he described it. The excitement is gone. In its place is awe, shock, and humility. War had revealed its true face.
I have grown gray in my service, and now find myself growing blind.
Wow, this doesn't sound like a commander giving orders. It sounds like a tired man asking to be understood. Why would Washington speak about his failing body? He spoke these words aloud at the beginning of his Newburgh address in March 1783. The Continental Army officers were furious. They had not been paid, and some were considering mutiny against Congress. Washington stood before them, pulled out his glasses, something few had ever seen him wear, and spoke of how age and service had taken their toll. The room fell silent, and some officers were even moved to tears. His honesty touched their hearts. The mutiny dissolved. This moment showed Washington's greatest strength, moral authority, not force.
I had rather be on my farm than be emperor of the world.
Really, the most powerful man in America, saying he would rather go home and farm. With enemies abroad and critics at home, why would he say this now? Washington wrote this while under enormous political pressure during his presidency. The nation faced a debt crisis, an ongoing war on the northwestern frontier, and chaos in Europe following the French Revolution. At the same time, newspapers were attacking him daily, and fierce partisan divisions were growing inside his own administration. This quote was not fantasy, it was exhaustion. Washington felt the weight of leadership deeply. He truly longed for the quiet life at Mount Vernon. His greatness came not from loving power, but from being willing to give it up. Thank you for watching. Which of these George Washington quotes surprised you the most, and why? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, please like the video and subscribe for more stories that bring history's voices to life.